right, we've got another Cube expansion, and if you haven't checked out Cube, you really should check it out. I have some old videos on it, and I've also got another video of one of their other expansions that was done in collaboration with Ben Jordan. And in this expansion, it's all about guitars. It's called Sky. And all we're gonna do is look at these patches, make some music with it, and see if this is something you wanna check out. So they are sponsoring this video. And if you do wanna pick up just this expansion, something I just realized is you can get Cube Mini for free if you buy this expansion. So it's $29 US. You get this expansion, you get to dabble with Cube, see if it's something you want to get, and then you can get the bigger version where you can go in and dig into the patches and change things around and really get into what makes Cube super powerful. So very cool feature. I didn't know that you could do that till right now, and hopefully I'm getting that right. But let's check out these patches, and I gotta say, right when they sent it over to me, I started playing a patch and I instantly had this little ambient idea for another project that I was working on. And I love it when you get inspired by patches right away. Cube is definitely one of those pieces of software that's worth having. And it's made by a small company, a bunch of people who are really passionate about what they're doing, just trying to make very cool software. They're composers themselves. And so I can't say enough good things about them as people and as a company. So let's check into Sky for Cube. So for starters, you just click on this middle area to get to the browser of Cube. And you'll see the presets that come with Cube. We've got a ton from the factory. And then I've got a bunch of expansions loaded in here already. Canopies is the one that was done in collaboration with Ben Jordan. Very cool patches on here. And this new one here is called Sky. So we click on that one and we get all of our new guitar patches. And they do have a great little browser already in Cube. So I'm quite impressed with this as relatively new software to have a decent browser. So in this case, I could click on something like a pulsing patch and then maybe go to something like clean, and now you're only gonna get those patches. So let's try some of these pulsing patches and see what we got. I want to just sort of address a couple things about Cube that make it special. I'm talking about this ether control and the macro control, which are going to change the sound in some way. That macro is going to be hooked up to something. So if I click on the modulation and the mod matrix, we're going to see what the macro is assigned to. So we can see it's assigned in this case to a saturator mix and some delay. So the more I crank up the macro, the more we're going to get delay, which is cool. Let's try it. And crank it down. So the macro is an important thing that's built into each patch, but it's also something that you can go and assign to anything you want. And we'll play with that one a fair bit. But what I've done here is I've got my Touche controller and I've got it assigned to the macro on the top one. And I've got the bottom one assigned to ether. And so if I hold down a chord, so you can hear how I'm drastically changing the sound of the patch with this controller. And this ether slider apparently is just a totally different version of the samples they've got that you're hearing when it's down at the bottom. So it's basically like two different versions of every sample in Cube. I think that's how it works. And as you morph between those, you're going to get a more drastic sound usually if you crank up this ether control. It's a little bit ambiguous, but it's just giving you a different characteristic of the sound. And then, of course, applying some kind of dynamic control to it, you can get some really interesting effects with that as well. And on my complete control keyboard here, I've got my filter knob right here, so I can adjust the filter. And so you could assign all of these controls, of course, to any controller keyboard or controller type thing that you have in your studio. For example, if you have a complete control keyboard, any of them actually, you can go over to the MIDI settings and change the ether to control change 1 and the macro to control change 11. Mod wheel for the ether, just up and down, and then the expression slider on those keyboards you can now use with the macro. So a very easy way to go in and customize it, but you'll see me using the Touche throughout the rest of this video. And then it gets a little bit crazier with Cube. You can see this ball sliding between these 2 points, and it's super confusing at first. But what this whole cube represents is 8 different sets of samples. So each corner is a different sample that's been loaded. Sometimes it's the same sample with some kind of parameter change on it. And you can either use orbits. That's what's happening right here. So we have this orbit that's happening over 2 bars, and we'll see more drastic examples of that later. Or you could actually control that. So we could turn off this orbit motion. And then now if I go to my MIDI, we can see that 22, 23, 24 are controlling where that orbit is. So I've got my complete control keyboard, and it's just gonna... And it's gonna move front to back, up and down, and side to side. And we'll try some patches later with a little bit more drastic samples loaded so you can really hear what's going on with that. But that's how I'm changing the parameters of the sound as I'm going through these different patches. But let's try another patch, another pulsing one. So let's just try recording something in there. And let's just see what kind of MIDI information we had recorded there. You can see I got some CC 16 and 17, which is the top and the bottom. And it also did a little bit of 18 and 19, which I don't actually have hooked up to anything right now. So the side to side of the Touche controller here. And so I can just go and see what it's done. There's my information right there. And if I want to adjust it, of course, I can go and make that a little bit more refined. Maybe bring this in a bit slower. So very easy to go and tweak your MIDI information as it's controlling things like my ether and the macro. And this time we'll try something different. So let's go to Sky and let's try something that is maybe a pad. Let's see what else we got. Oh, this one's beautiful. Yes, I remember playing with this one. Isn't that awesome? Okay, very cool stuff. So let's play with this patch. Okay, let's go find another patch. We're gonna go to maybe try something in the bass. Okay, I like that bass patch, but before we commit to that one, let's try a couple more. Okay, this one's a patch by Data Broth, somebody who makes incredible patches. I've seen a lot of Data Broth stuff on different virtual instruments. Might be a little aggressive for this little idea, but I love it. Oh, wow. And here, just harmonic plucks. And we get distortion if we raise the ether, which I'm doing down here. So, and we'll keep on our search for a bass. Okay, and it says hidden bonus, turn on a loop for a custom sequence. Okay, let's try that. So I'm going to click on the sounds tab up top. So here I need to click on this one sample itself, and we can see it's slot A, and we're going to turn on the loop. Oh, So you can program in entire sequences if you click this little tweak button. So definitely go watch the video to see more about this kind of stuff, but that's where you can have an arpeggiator or you can have actual sequenced steps. So let's go try some more patches. So all I was doing there was playing with the ether. And we'll go back to Fire and Ice and try something with it. I've got a drum kit loaded here with some Lone Forest. It's a machine expansion, very cool sounds. Let's put something from there. This was totally not what I was planning on doing, but sometimes you just load up patches and something new happens. So let's start from scratch again and keep looking at patches. This is the kind of stuff I do all the time if I'm working on little ideas. I just had to come up with some kind of ambient music for this little video game. And basically I start playing around with ideas. I get a drum kit, I get some instruments, I come up with one idea, and then I move on to the next one. But now my project's set up and I've already got some kind of applicable sounds and start from there. Great way to work and great way to spin out a lot of ideas without getting bogged down with one idea for too long. And then I send off those little ideas and then usually something is gonna hit the money, you know, and then I'm gonna go on and just flesh out that track. So similar to what you see me do in YouTube videos all the time. So let's go try something different. Let's just get rid of these. So really beautiful picked electric guitar stuff. And it's triplets, and so that has a different feel to it. So let's just play along and see how it goes. All right, let's go somewhere where I haven't explored yet. So it looks like someone will get some more distortion as you crank up the ether knob. So I'm just going to put in a little beat so that I can have some perspective on where the rhythm is. So we'll just use that same drum kit. Okay, this patch is perfect. This one's called the Evaporator. It's an arpeggiated patch. So if I click out of here, we can go to the sounds and we can see this one has a whole bunch of different sounds loaded into it. And if you click on any one of them, we can then go over to this tweak button and see that the arpeggiator And they could all have different arpeggiators on each of those corners, which gets pretty chaotic or crazy, but powerful. And if we look, we can see that there are quite different samples that are loaded. So if we go to the orbits, let's turn off the orbit motion for a sec. And then if we go to the back, or the Z, here, they're all kind of arpeggiating at different times. So this instrument is so powerful. And sometimes you load a patch and you just go, okay, it's doing something rhythmic, but I don't know whether that's happening with the orb motion, or whether that's happening with a modulator, or whether it's happening with the sequencer, you know? So it does get a little bit confusing. But let's turn on the orbit motion again. Now you get the idea of what's happening. It's kind of cycling through these different arpeggiated samples. And it can get a little bit crazier if you want it to. I can click over here and I can say, okay, this sound right here, I want this one to come out of the left side. This sound right here, I want it to come out of the right. This sound right here, left. This sound right here, right. Do the same thing with all of these ones. And right. Oh, and then we can also go to the orbits here and drag the intensity up so that it goes even farther into those different corners. Very cool stuff, but the problem with this one is that it's not going to work with my other patterns because they're a triplet bass pattern, and with this one, it's more of just like 16th notes. This one's so cool, let's just try making a new idea out of it. Wow, beautiful patches. Oh yeah, we're gonna try this little baritone guitar type thing here. And remember, the orbits are just pushing into these different versions of the sound. It has nothing really to do with left and right unless you make it so, but it's pushing between these different patches. So if I just crank the intensity up, all right, just gonna play this out with a little solo. Thanks again to Lunacy Audio for sponsoring the video, sending this over. Make sure you go check out all the stuff on their website. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and all that, and I'll see you in the next video.